as you know, today, May 22nd, it's not only the start of the Memorial Day weekend, and we salute those as Memorial Day weekend is for, to salute those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and we do that. But it's also a day that the Mike and the Mad Dog program has always been linked to, and that is the whole Mike Piazza trade. Okay, did Mike and the Mad Dog influence the trade, and how did that unfold? And I can tell you, it happened 22 years ago today, and I can tell you exactly what our role was, what our role wasn't, and how it played out. And this is exactly how it happened. Piazza goes to from the Dodgers to the Mets, to the Marlins. Okay, I'm driving by Shea Stadium on a Tuesday night. The Mets are playing a makeup doubleheader after a rainout with the Reds. As I go over the Whitestone Expressway, I'm going home, not going to the game, but I can see into the stadium as always, and the place is empty. So next day when I get to work, I'm saying, you know what? The Mets is like a ghost town. There's nobody there. They should make a move for Piazza. I said, so Dog and I start talking about it, and the fans start to get into it. Well, it goes on that day and into Thursday. Thursday, I get a call from Piazza's agent who says Piazza wants to play for the Mets, and you know what? By tomorrow, he's going to be a Cub. So I'm like, well, why don't you call the Mets up? He says, well, we are, but we just want to tell you guys, too, because we know you've been drumming up Piazza, so we're just telling you, bang the drum because he wants to play for the Mets. But I'm telling you right now, he's not going to be here another day. He's going to go to the Cubs because they're not keeping him here. He'll be a Cub by Friday night, okay? So it's Thursday, and we keep banging it as Dog and I often did. We stir things up, and we're stirring it up with the fans and everything. We get Steve Phillips on, and Steve Phillips says, 100%, absolutely no way, not happening. Fred Wilpon makes a statement, not happening, absolutely not happening. Steve comes on and just blows it out of the water completely. And we're like, Steve, why not? Makes sense. No, it doesn't. We're not doing it. Here's why we're not doing it. We got this, we got that, we got Huntley, we got this, we got that. We're not doing it. Too expensive. We're not making the move. We're like, listen, there's not. So we kept it up, okay? We kept it up. We just kept pounding it and pounding it. Little do we know that after Wilpon says no, and Steve Phillips had come on and basically thrown cold water. He had basically said in no uncertain terms, there's not a chance in hell that this is happening. Little did we know, and I had a very good relationship with Mr. Wilpon, but I also had a very good relationship with Nelson Doubleday. But I never spoke to Mr. Doubleday that week. I did speak to Piazza's agent. He called a couple of times that week. We tried to get Piazza on. He didn't want to come on, but he kept calling us, Piazza's agent. Piazza never came on. And I never spoke to Doubleday, but we kept pounding on Thursday and pounding that they should get it. And we got the fans going crazy, and they're calling the switchboard. And I gather they have a meeting, and at the meeting, Doubleday gets at the meeting and says, the boys, I was listening to the boys on the radio, and they're right. We should get Piazza. We should look into it. Now, I can't take you through the wheres and wherefore of the trade because I was not part of that. But we did, according to, and Mr. Doubleday did tell me this, Nelson Doubleday told me this later on that year, that you guys actually did help convince me that this was a good idea. I actually was swayed by what you guys said. And then someone else in the organization told me the same thing, said I was at the meeting, and it's absolutely true. You definitely did. And Mr. Doubleday told me this in the elevator when I going up in the elevator. He says, you really had a big impact on that. You guys actually did influence me on this. I really thought it was a good idea. You made plenty of sense. We needed a drawing card. And amazingly, that year, they drew 14,000 before Mike, and then drew 31,000 a game. Think about the difference. Not only did they finish close, they didn't make the playoffs. They fell a game short. And Mike got off to a slow start, then went gangbusters. Hit 340, had 20-something homers, had a million late game homers. You know how good Piazza was. But the attendance was unbelievable. It went from 14,000 a game to in the middle of May to 31,000 a game the rest of the season. So it was a home run on every level. He becomes one of the great Mets. And, what made me do it was more from a standpoint of here's a dormant franchise which is drawing flies to here's this guy that I just think could be an incredible drawing card. I was looking at it more from that standpoint than anything else. I can tell you, never spoke to Piazza. Never spoke. I did speak to Piazza's agent a couple times. He called a couple times on Thursday, even called again on Friday morning. And he said, Mike is in the shower and he's an hour away from going to the Cubs. I remember that phone call. It was like about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock on Friday or whatever time it was. But that was his comment. When we asked him to come on, he wouldn't come on. But he said, right now he thinks he's going to the Cubs. And that's all we heard with Thursday and Friday was he's going to the Cubs. And never spoke to Mr. Double. I would never have called Mr. Double. I didn't have that kind of relationship with him. But I did, he always was nice to me at the ballpark. He'd always stop and chat and everything. I went upstairs in the elevator with him a couple of days later, and he told me, he says, you guys had a big influence on this from that standpoint. You did convince me. It made plenty of sense. I thought it was a good idea. And I guess, Doubleday, when he put his foot down, he was the senior partner. When he put his foot down, he got what he wanted. He didn't do it often. He did it here. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, did Mike and the Mad Dog have did we make the trade? No. Did we maybe influence Mr. Doubleday into making a trade? Yeah, maybe. We went crazy on it. And why did we go crazy on it? For this reason. It was causing a stir. The fans were getting revved up like crazy. It was getting a ton of publicity. It took on a life of its own. And you know how those stories are on the radio. They start taking off on a life of their own. Everyone now is thinking about Piazza. Everyone's waiting to see where Piazza is going. I saw today one story said that Piazza was going to spend his whole career in Florida. No, they had told Piazza, don't even bother renting. Stay in a hotel. You're not going to be here. I think it was Dombrowski, if I remember right, told him, you're not staying. You're leaving. They were looking for a place for him immediately. They were getting rid of him from the get-go. He was not staying. And I remember on Friday before the show started, maybe an hour before, I remember being in the back room, and they called me and said, you have a call in the control room, and it was Piazza's agent. And he said, Mike's going to the Cubs. And that was on maybe like 11 or 12 o'clock on that Friday, if I remember right. I don't think it was on Thursday. I think it was on Friday. Nowadays, it was before the trade came down. I think the trade came down. I think the earliest we heard about it was on Friday in the afternoon. But again, now I don't remember that, exactly what time we heard about it. But before I heard about the trade, he said to me on the phone, Mike thinks he's going to the Cubs as of right now, not to the Mets. And that's the last I heard was that, and I think I even reported that, saying that right now it looks like the Cubs are in the lead. We did not know that the Mets had entered into negotiations. And then next thing you know, boom, he's a Met. And I didn't know the extent of the Doubleday thing until after the fact. I did not know it as it happened that he had come in and said, hey, you know what? At the table, I was listening to the boys on the radio, and I agree with them. And that was one time where it actually made a big difference. I also think you fans made a big difference because I think you swamped them with calls asking for Piazza. I think you swamped the switchboard asking for Piazza. I think that had a big impact too. And I think you add it all up, and Piazza came, and the rest is history. I mean, it was a great, great pickup. I mean, here was a guy who not only was a tremendous star, but he could fill ballparks. That's the rare guy, the guy who people will buy tickets to see. And Piazza was a slugger that people would buy tickets to see. He hit dramatic home runs, as you know. And he had a knack, whether it was the Yankee-Met series or obviously the Braves-Corsair game after 9/11, Mike had a knack for hitting a big home run. Think about how many times he hit big home runs late in games or to win games or against the Braves or against Mike had a knack for the big home run. Killing Clemens in the Yankee-Met games. I mean, he hit some of the longest home runs against the Yankees I ever saw. I mean, I remember one game against Clemens, he had a 3-run homer and a triple, and I mean, he was wearing them out. The Mets won that game like 8-0 on a Sunday night. That was the day where they fired all the coaches before the game. And I went to the game at Yankee Stadium, and the Mets won like 8-0 and pounded the Yankees. And Piazza went crazy in that game. But, I mean, so many times you saw him have big – he owned – just like Jeter owned the Mets. Jeter and Bernie Williams used to wear the Mets out, especially Jeter. But Piazza owned the Yankees, especially Clemens. He pounded the heck out of them. And, I mean, how exciting was he as a player? He was a great, dramatic, home run hitting star. That's what he was.